this video, we'll begin our discussion of internal rate of return, which is used by many companies to evaluate projects, often called IRR, and our file will just be called IRR. Okay, so we'll break this up into two videos. So let's first define IRR. So if you've got a sequence of cash flows, here we have two projects, we've got cash flows. Okay, and the problem with NPV is the NPV, or net present value, depends on the discount rate. So if I discount these projects at 20%, project 2 is better than project 1. If I discount them at 1%, project 1 is better. So the answer to which project is better depends on the discount rate. So a lot of companies, although fewer than there used to be, I use internal rate of return. So the IRR of a project is the discount rate that sets NPV equal to 0. And there are problems with IRR, which we'll get to in a couple of minutes, okay? But basically, let's just focus on finding it. So the problem with internal rate of return is you sort of have to sometimes start off with a guess. Excel sort of guesses the rate of return is 10%. And basically, if it's not near 10%, it might get it wrong. Okay. So let's look at these two projects, try and find the IRR. I mean, you could just do a straight IRR and it would work here. Do IRR function, and assuming these are regularly spaced cash flows, you get the first project has an IRR of, if you want to be precise about it, 47.5%. Oops, should probably get more decimal points there if I do. 47.5%. Okay. Now, sometimes that won't work if the IRR is way different than 10%. So you should try a guess. So if you type in IRR, you'll see the syntax is there's an optional guess argument. So you can highlight your cash flows, $sign them using F4, and then as the guess, you could try minus 90% and go to plus 90%. And if you always get the same IRR, that'll sort of tell you if there's a unique IRR, because there doesn't have to be a unique IRR. We'll give you conditions that guarantee a unique IRR in a second. So that's project 1. Now if I look at project 2, I could say internal rate of return, here's the cash flows, and then we would say we will guess right here. And I get 80% as the IRR no matter what I guess. Okay, now there is a condition that guarantees a unique IRR for a project. A project will always have a unique IRR if the sign of the cash flows, by sign I mean positive or negative, changes one time. So you notice most projects will start with a negative cash flow, you put in money, and then you get positive cash the rest of the way. That guarantees a unique internal rate of return. And what does this rate of return mean? It means every dollar you put in project 1 is really returning you 48% per year. If you discounted these cash flows at 48%, you get an NPV of 0. Every dollar you put in investment 2 is returning about 80% a year. What's the relationship between internal rate of return and NPV? Okay, if the IRR is greater than the discount rate for the WACC, then the NPV is positive. If the IRR is less than the discount rate, or the WACC, whatever you want to call it, then the NPV is less than 0. If the IRR equals the discount rate, the NPV would equal 0 by definition. Okay, so what are some problems with IRR? You can have a project with no IRR, okay, and these are sort of strange cases that don't really happen very often, but so this comes out of every finance book has their own pathological case. So let's suppose at time 0 your project pays you $10, then you have to pay in 30, and then you get 35. And then basically, if you try different guesses, you get an error because there's no discount rate that'll make the NPV of this project equal 0. You could try as hard as you want and try until the Cubs win the World Series, or maybe the Astros will win the World Series. But basically, you're not going to have any number that gets the NPV equal to 0. So there's no internal rate of return, so you couldn't use it as your criteria. Now, what about a multiple or more than one internal rate of return? So here's again an example. Every finance book has their own pathological example here. So here the cash flows swing minus 20, 82, minus 60, and 2. So the cash flows change sign 3 times. So I guessed internal rates of return from minus 90 to plus 90%, and we get 2 different IRRs. Minus 10% if we guess a small IRR, 216% if we guess a big IRR. Now those are very different. What does that mean? I have no clue. Okay, so we'll give you one more example. So these are weaknesses of IRR. There might be no internal rate of return. There could be multiple internal rates of return. And the scale factor is sort of a bad defect of IRR. Okay? Now here's an example. Suppose I told you could do one of these 2 projects. First project, you pay in $100. A year later, you get $140. The second project, you pay in $1. A year later, you get $3. So you do an IRR. This has a 200% IRR. Okay? I mean, basically, you discount it 200%, you get an NPV of 0. This has an IRR of 40%. You're getting 40% on your money here. After paying $1, you make $2 profit, you're getting 200%. So it looks like the second project is, let's call them 1 and 2, is much better. But the problem with that second project is, look at the NPV. If you discount it, let's say 10%, that's only making you about $1.50. I mean, if you can only do one project, basically that's not going to make you much money. The first project will make you much more money because it's just a bigger scale factor. You can't just scale up arbitrarily a minus $1 project and multiply it by 100 in many cases. So that's why finance professors or academics usually don't like IRR. But if you want to know for a project, and it's often used in capital budgeting, I think at the auto companies, and basically even some tech companies that I've worked with, the internal rate of return, 12% says you're getting sort of 12% per year on your money. And if you look at the money you put into an investment fund, like my wife is in an women's investment club, and we know how much money she put in each month, and we know the current value of her stocks, we could find the rate of return on basically our investments in her investment club. And so that would be an interesting thing, and IRR is quite useful in many cases. In the next video, we'll talk about what you do if the cash flows are not regular, they're irregular. You can use XIRR, and we may talk about the modified internal rate of return function.
Okay, so thanks for watching, and there's a free course, a free 21-day course from Dr. Winston, and all of these videos are coming from one of 3 books. So first, this one, which you can see here at the top of the screen, Microsoft's book, which has 355 reviews, and then it's, let's see, 4.6 stars. It's coming from this book as well, his marketing analytics book, which is down here, and you can sort of see 4.5, or his newest book, his analytics stories book, which is here. And with that one, you can see it's 4 point something, or maybe even 5. I don't think it's 5. Yeah, 4.8. And so, yeah, anyways, in the description, there's a free 21-day course from Dr. Winston, or you can go to excelwithwayne.com/free, and it'll be there. But again, thanks for watching, and if you have any questions, just please let us know. Thanks.